Hello folks, and welcome to my 5-mast vision guide for Orgrimmar, in my opinion the easier of the two, for a Resto Druid at least. This guide is going to be for Resto Druids, so there is a bit of an expectation that you'll be cat weaving. Before that, however, we're just going to go through the masts in the order that I think you should do them in, if you're just sort of levelling up, gearing up, maybe you're an alt or just a brand new level 120. So the first mast you should start off with is the Faceless Mast of Dark Imagination. This means that when you're below 50% sanity, occasionally an enemy will attack you. It's nothing to worry about. The other easy mast is the Burning Bridge, which will cause void zones to spawn in your path. It's again very easy to avoid. For your third mast, it's really going to depend on what you struggle with. If you're struggling with sanity, i.e. you're running out of sanity, then you can go for Master of the Pained, which will cause you to have to deal with 2 madnesses rather than 1. However, if you're dying due to damage you just can't handle it, then Master of the Daredevil is the next best one, which will increase sanity damage caused by 400%. After that, again, it really depends on your issue. If you are struggling with sanity, then you should go with the Daredevil Mask that I've just mentioned, but if you're struggling with just raw damage, then Master of the Long Night is perfectly fine. And then the last master obviously is what you're missing. Right, with that out of the way, let's get started. So I'm going to be watching this with you at 2.5 times speed and just going through everything I'm doing. So right at the very start, just sort of pulling a lot of the mobs here. Nothing here is super dangerous. The Shaman I tend to go for first, just because the totems have been a bit annoying, but it's not really a big deal. And since you haven't got many bad madnesses in this area. Here I'm just checking for Gammon, but he's not up, which means the other money buffs will be, and just looking for crystals here. If this is your first time doing 5 masts, I'd recommend just ignoring crystals. They're really not worth a huge amount in the end, and you just want to make sure you actually complete it. Chests, however, are normally always worth doing. So here we're checking for the bad potion, which was purple there, which means every other potion is going to be good for you. Some people say, oh, just go for the sanity potions, but honestly, all the other buffs are still pretty good. Especially as a healer, you can just get the 5 breathing one. There, that pack and a few others in this first area have got the shield bearer. These can do a shockwave that will stun you, and you really don't want to get stunned in visions as a healer, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So we're going up here first to the mini boss. This is the mini boss for an area we're not actually going to do. Here I just sort of put a few dots on him and just start moving to the next area. As a Resto Druid, you have 4 dots. It's pretty easy to put all 4 up on someone and then just start moving along, especially someone who just stands still and casts so much. So here I've got the split personality, which is always up apparently because everyone, Blizzard hate you. And this is a pack that I don't normally do, and you'll probably see why I don't normally do it here. The Touch of the Abyss casts that Dominators do is something that you really want to kill them before they do it. It's a stun, and as I've mentioned before, stuns are pretty bad to happen. So I'd always try and take those out first. I run Essence of the Flame, and one of the bonuses of Essence of the Flame is it can really help you take out these mobs quicker, these sort of dangerous ones. So the mini boss coming up here now is just a case of moving whenever his swirlies appear on the ground. So basically anytime he does any form of cast, you're just moving around. You'll notice that I don't tend to start many fights in cat form, despite the fact you can get all the bonuses for starting in cat form. And that's really just because so much of this stuff sees through stealth. It's outrageous how much stuff can see through stealth here. So just starting with Moonfire and Sunfire is normally what I do, just to pick everything up, get Sunfire out or anything, and just swipe it all down. That's my general approach, unless there's a mob in the pack that I consider to be especially dangerous. Generally anything that casts stuns or does pretty high damage. Now the reason why you're looking to avoiding stuns is, as a healer, all the mobs here have got a lot less health than they would do if you were DPS, which is why you can actually kill stuff quicker than DPS can kill theirs. However, the flip side is that stuff tends to deal a lot more damage to you because you can out-heal it. And that's why if you're stunned and you've got too much damage going on you, you'll just die before the stun ends. Just because everything is dealing so much more damage. So doing these as a healer is very much a case of kill or be killed. So this mini boss here, I tend to stick quite close to him, just sort of avoid that cone there. And by sticking close to him, you can just avoid the circles that he does. He goes down pretty quickly, which means you'll end up with like 9 of these little fleshling things to kill, but they're no real issue. So now we move into the second area, which is one of the sort of corrupted areas but not lost ones. And here, I mean, you go around this way if you're looking for chests or crystals, but if you're not looking for those, then you can just immediately go left like you normally do. If the mini boss that can be in this area would be around here, she's not up this time, which means there's going to be someone in the drag instead. But that's where she would be. She has an instant cast Hex, so you generally want to fight her just exclusively in cat form. That way you'll never get hexed, as you'll be immune to shapeshift. So in these packs you've got the Tormentors. They deal quite heavy raid damage that you can't interrupt with Typhoon. So that's generally why I kill those first. And same with the Void Elementals, they cast Void Buffet. That increases the shadow damage you've taken. You generally want to dispel this off yourself. It's not the most important thing to do on some packs if there's no other shadow damage going around. And it's really just knowledge of the packs, but to be sure, I would always just dispel yourself whenever you get a cast from you. So this boss here, just load up with dots and then you're going to get silenced. It's actually possible, you can see how quickly he goes down, to just load up with dots and actually get him to cast the Oblivion twice in a row. And you only have to pick up 1 orb, so that's pretty nice. If you get hit by a wave though, you end up getting feared and you can just get CC locked, so avoiding waves is the most important thing you want to do on that boss. So here we've got a few more packs in the first area that I just do just to sort of clear stuff out, clear it for later. And here's another shield bearer that has the shockwave that you'll just want to dodge. So now we're entering the third area, the drag. The other Kathir here, the Mind Carvers, can also stun you, but they tend to not stun you until quite long into combat, and you should generally have killed them by the time that happens. So this boss here, he's a bit annoying with his pushing and all the pulls that you're going to be dropping, and do remember to actually save Corona, which is something that's very easy to forget to do. So here's the mini boss in drag that is active. It's just a case of, sort of killing him and grabbing your buff for the rest of the run. So you'll notice here again you've got Dominators again, so I'm always trying to go for Dominators first, just making sure I kill them before Touch of the Abyss gets cast. Typhoons are a great sort of backup to interrupt Touch of the Abyss if need be, but you should generally be looking at killing them before Touch of the Abyss manages to complete its cast. If they die due to dots while Touch of the Abyss is being cast on you, it'll just end the stun instantly, so that's just as good, to be honest. So here another pack with some Kathir there. Nothing too bad. The drag is quite nice and open. This is generally why I think this place is a bit easier than Stormwind. It's just in general much more open, and that really helps with a lot of the affixes. So this boss is a case of just put all your dots in him quickly, and when he casts Void Torrent, you just want to leave melee range and use dash to sprint around him. You'll completely avoid the stun if you don't get hit by any of the Void Torrents, and if you've got all 4 of your dots up, you'll find that that's probably enough to take him down anyway. Moving into the last area, we end up having Misha. You want to get away with Maddening Roar, it will deal extremely high damage. Now, worth noting in this area is every corpse will spawn one of these scarabs, and you really need to be mindful of that because of the poison debuff they all put on you. This pack here also contains the Swarm Leader that you'll generally want to take out first, as it will buff the damage of everything else that's in combat with you. So this poison debuff, it's just a light dot, but if you get 5 stats, you'll be stunned. This, as I've mentioned a lot, is pretty bad to do. So if you only pull packs of 4, you'll probably get 4 stacks on you, and then you can just immediately cleanse yourself. However, if you end up pulling too much, like I did there, that's 5 mobs there, that's 5 stacks near instantly, and that's a stun that pretty much almost costs me. So especially in this area here, just remember that everybody will end up spawning little scarabs that can poison you. So you'll want to make sure that you just pull very carefully in this area. If you've got here like I have and you haven't had to use an orb, and this is the first time the horrific figment has ever spawned, then you know you're in a pretty good spot and you can afford to take it a bit slower. This mini boss also applies to a lot of the poison debuffs, and if you haven't stepped on any of their bodies beforehand, it's also pretty easy to accidentally pull more stuff here. This patch's not a nice one, as it has one of the swarm leaders, but also, as you can see there, I just got stunned again. The larger ones as well have a headbutt, and this can knock you out of the vision area, which will deal heavy sanity damage to you very quickly. So just make sure you position in such a way that that doesn't happen. And now we're heading up to probably the hardest boss, and the boss that I think is most important to get right. As you can see, I'm going to use an orb before him, but the most important thing to remember with Rexar is to take him slow. His boars that he summons are all health percentage, so he spawns one, you want to nuke that boar down, maybe use Essence of the Flame. This time around here, unfortunately, a Twilight Devastation ends up actually proccing all three at once. Typhoon is the pretty much only interrupt you have, so it's a good sort of emergency interrupt that you'll need to do, but that's why it's good to go in with full sanity, and if you haven't had to use an orb beforehand, that's fantastic. Now, you should really use the totem to go back. I'm pretty sure I don't use a totem here because I think I've missed a crystal, whereas I haven't actually missed a crystal at all. So yeah, just take the totem back, and if you if you have collected crystals, make sure to hand them in. If you haven't, then just sort of go straight to Thrall and stock up on your orb beforehand. And Thrall, he starts off with the void boars as well, so you just want to take them out the same way. You can sort of knock them back in order to interrupt their casts. Main thing with Thrall to avoid is his Defiled Ground, which is a frontal stunning cone, so you'll just want to move from that. Throws of the Void is pretty easy to break, and you know, you've probably done this boss enough that you'll know the tactics for him. It's really just avoiding Defiled Ground and basically avoiding all the bad stuff on the ground. And that's that done. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope you get some pretty good loot from this. See ya.